Welcome to the weekly podcast called The Humanity. This is your host, Cindy. This chapter of the podcast focuses on the effects of domestication on cows and the farming environment. Today's episode, I brought a very special guest. Her name is Katie Smith. The reason why I brought her is because she's a experienced and prestigious farmer from Colorado. She's been farming for 30 years now. And she has some really good experience on how the environment and the cows have changed due to domestication as she's been in this business for so long. So here's Katie Smith.
Thanks for having me, Cindy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you here, Katie. Katie, how long have you been in the farming business for?
I've been farming for 30 years, and I've lived in Delta, Colorado my entire life.
Oh, that's interesting. That's great. Now, the reason why I brought you here is because you were in Colorado before the population boom happened.
That's correct, Cindy. I've been here since the 60s. Well, I started farming in the 60s, but like I said, I've lived here my entire life, and I've seen Colorado changed drastically. We've got all of the traffic now, all of these out-of-towners coming in here and causing mayhem and chaos. It's been quite the change.
I bet you have seen a lot of changes. One change that I want to speak to you in specifically is your cattle. I'm doing some research and I found that ever since the 2010, the boom of Colorado, local farmers have had to increase their productivity, and demand has just been crazy. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. Even though there's been lots of changes, business has been very good lately.
And amazing, but I know that the changes that have happened with your land and your cows have not been so good. Is that right?
That's correct, Cindy. With increased productivity and increased production, I have to have many more cows at any given moment, which has led to an increase in disease amongst my cows.
Research that I found that they tend to get blisters on their skin.
That's correct. They get blisters on their skin, and it is highly contagious.
What he is speaking of is a viral skin disease called the pseudocowpox. And this disease causes mild sores on the teats and udders of the cattle.
These cows just suffer. I feel so bad for them, and honestly, I've considered going to organic farming and organic cattle raising just because I know that these hormones aren't the best answer to my problem.
Like many other farmers in Colorado, are having to make the tough choice to put down a lot of their cattle due to diseases like this, caused by the mass demand of milk and meat. The cows aren't the only ones suffering and getting affected by this mass domestication. Our lands are also losing nutrients and being affected in ways that we have never seen before.
That's exactly right, Cindy. Constantly, year after year, I have to plant the same types of crops on my fields in order to feed all my cattle. And these same crops take the same nutrients from the soil. It's not a sustainable way to continue to farm, and I need to have diversity in my crops in order for the land to continue to thrive and produce food.
But keeping your cows alive is not allowing you to do so.
That's correct, Cindy. I don't know if there's a winning situation for me here. This is a very complicated issue with multiple dynamics and multiple dimensions, and I'm really not sure what the right answer is at this point.
Unfortunately, you're one farmer, but big corporations, they just don't care.
All they care about is the money. Always the little one, the little man in the totem pole, and I can't ever seem to win, and I'm doing all the hard work.
Of course they are. That's what it's all about, isn't it? That's what it's always been about.
You got that right. What I want to emphasize though in today's episode is that even though big corporations are not going to be the change, we individually can be the change. I personally have started looking into plant-based meats, insect-based hamburgers. Have you ever tried going that route, Katie? Being a farmer?
I never have before, Cindy, but honestly, at this point, I'm looking for anything to be sustainable and to help the environment, to help the world, to reduce carbon emissions and methane gas emissions. 'Cause let me tell you what, Cindy, these cows be farting all day long, and they've got a whole lot of methane production. And I'm a very small farm. I can't imagine some of these big cattle corporations, these huge operations that are producing thousands and thousands and thousands of cattle every single month, every single year.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. And just as you and I are so passionate about it, so is our audience, and we can all be the change that we need for tomorrow's kids of the future. That's all for today's episode and this week. Join us in next week's episode where we will be looking at mass production of shoes. Where are all your shoes going? And what it's doing to the earth. Thank you so much, Katie, for being with us.
Thank you, Cindy. It was a pleasure.
Yes, take care, and bye-bye, audience. Keep it real. The Humanity Podcast. Tuning out.